Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your Rant Line, Raid Line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that race line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello everybody, welcome back to Redshirt Radio, episode 580, coming to you on Monday, December 9th. We're going to talk about bowl season. USC knows their fates. When it comes to bowl season, it's going to be Las Vegas in the Vegas Bowl against Texas A&M. So we're going to talk about that. Also, the transfer portal. SC losing some big names. Kyron Hudson, Quentin Joyner, Sam Green. We're going to talk all about it in this episode. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rant of Troy. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy. Blue Sky at Rant of Troy. Email address rantoftroy@fanside.com. And our phone number, 818-643-7227.
Suck it, what's Bruin Show?
I don't know what happened.
What
there.
Was that?
I don't know. All right, let's do it again. At our phone number, 818-643-7227. Suck it, what's Bruin Show. There we go. That's much better.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm your host, Mike Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Rancher Studio in Los Angeles, across the room from me, Alicia D'Artolo.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We're back.
Indeed we are.
I struggled to figure out what we were going to name this episode. It took a lot not to put the Quentin Joyner Memorial episode on there.
I mean, yeah.
We're gonna get to the portal stuff in a little bit, but buckle up. It's gonna be a rough one in that sense. But Alicia, I think we just gotta get right into it. Let's start with talking about the big news that came out yesterday. Alicia, the Trojans are going back to Las Vegas. Up the 15. Hopefully stopping in Barstow for a Del Taco Taco. Make it macho. And SC gets Texas A&M, the Aggies. The Aggies, 9 days removed from playing in their renewed rivalry with a chance to go to the SEC championship game. They lose that, and now they are destined to play against USC, where they will be guaranteed a last-minute game against the Trojans in the Vegas Bowl. Your thoughts on facing the Aggies, everyone's favorite, definitely not a Colt University, right?
It's tough for them to beat the allegations when you watch their
the Midnight Yells.
The Midnight Yells, yeah.
Hold on. You know the little leg kick thing?
Oh, well, see, I can't see you doing that, though.
Oh, this is true. You can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of fitting that USC begins the season in Vegas and ends the season in Vegas against an SEC opponent. I think this is a much better bowl than USC sort of has any right to be in. But bowl matches are weird. Like Lizard King is asking how this bowl matchup even happened. Because USC as a brand is essentially what the answer there is.
No, I think the simplest answer, to be honest, is that it's the playoff.
Yes, that's true.
Both SC and Texas A&M are like fifth in their respective conferences, but part of that is because the Pac-12 also blew up. And so SC was like the fifth ranked team in the Pac-12 in terms of bowls. And so, yeah, it sort of lines up that way. If SC was in the Big Ten bowls, I don't know that this would have been the matchup. But then again, the Big Ten has always had better bowls than the Pac-10, so this could have been the matchup. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird in the sense that on paper this is an 8-4 team against a 6-6 team, but at the same time this is an 8-4 team against a team that really should be 8-4. So they're not completely mismatched. But Texas A&M certainly has done more winning than USC this year. The thing that I can't make sense of just when I think about bowl matchups at this point is who the hell knows which way this is going to go, because who the hell knows who's even going to be playing the game for either of these teams. You know, I don't know if this is a good matchup or a bad matchup for USC until I know who Texas A&M has opting out, who Texas A&M has in the portal, because USC has a lot of guys in the portal that we're going to talk about. But separate from that, like separate from USC's win chances, I think going to Vegas is an excuse to go to Vegas is great. Yeah. Playing Texas A&M, a team that USC has not played very often in history, is a good thing. And, you know, being bowl eligible at all, what matters is the practices, and USC gets the practices. So,
yeah, I think it's a fitting opponent. This is we had quality losses to Notre Dame Bowl. This is we beat LSU Bowl. This is we were ranked in the top 10, but finished outside the top 10 in the AP Bowl. I think it's pretty fitting. You talk about the records being an issue. May I present the SEC of it all? Texas A&M is 8-3. 3 of their wins came against McNeese State. Just McNeese. They've dropped the state. McNeese, the FCS team, Bowling Green, and New Mexico State. They have 5 wins against teams that were in power conferences. How many wins does SC have against teams in power conferences? 5. I don't think that this is a mismatch, especially when you consider that we've talked the entire season that SC plays everybody close, no matter if it's Penn State, Notre Dame. Notre Dame, SC had the chance. They were like 20 yards away from tying the game late in the fourth quarter. Penn State, they had the lead in the final minutes and were looking to win the game in the dying seconds. So those are 2 playoff teams, right? And so SC can go toe-to-toe with those teams. They can also go toe-to-toe with Maryland and lose. So, yeah, I don't think that this is a bad matchup in that sense. Texas A&M lost to an Auburn team in overtime that they never should have lost to. They are a good, flawed team. I think SC is essentially in the same boat. The only reason that we wouldn't say that SC is a good, flawed team is because of their record. But again, they played a difficult schedule, and all those games were within a few points. So, like, it's not like SC is getting blown off the field against anybody. The only team that they didn't lead against in the fourth quarter was Notre Dame, a team that they could have tied with like 4 minutes to go. So, yeah, I think it's a good matchup. I think it'll be fun. A lot of it is what you talked about with bowl games. Who's going to play? I think it's going to be something we're going to discuss a fair bit in the next couple weeks. Talk about the previous games of this series. SC is 3-0 all time against the Aggies. 1964, the Trojans beat Texas A&M 31-7 at the Coliseum. In 75, they met in the Liberty Bowl. SC won 20-0. If I remember right, is that McKay's last game? John McKay's last game? Pretty sure.
You would certainly know better than I.
I'm pretty sure that's his last game before he left to the Bucks. 1977, the Bluebonnet Bowl, everyone's favorite bowl, I think, formerly played in Houston in the Astrodome. The Trojans won 47-28. So they've won by a bunch of points all 3 times that they've played, but again, they haven't played in almost 50 years, so it's been a while. When you look at the connections between the 2 schools, offensive line coach Josh Henson, his former school, Texas A&M. Inside wide receivers coach Luke Heward, his former school, Texas A&M. Anthony Lucas not playing because he had a season-ending injury early on in the season. His former school, Texas A&M. On the Texas A&M side, there's just one SC connection that I could find. There's got to be more, but there's just one that I could find off rip, and that's Danny Lockhart, walk-on USC linebacker. Now plays for the Aggies with a stop in Oxford to play for Ole Miss in the middle of there. So, yeah. And you talk about availability. We're going to talk about the transfer portal in a second. So we're talking about the guys who are not going to play due to transfer stuff. But I think the big one, Alicia, we got good news. Really, really good news. Back at linebacker, number 18, the Giraffe, Emerich Gentry. NCAA rules have been altered this season. Postseason games no longer matter when it comes to the 4-game redshirt rule, which means he can play and not burn his redshirt, which is awesome. And first of all, aside from the Emerich Gentry of it all, long overdue rule.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, especially with players opting out, in the playoff, look at, you might end up playing 4 playoff games for the playoff teams. It just makes sense. It makes sense to not have red shirts matter in the postseason, and SC benefits by getting arguably their best defensive player back against Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think this is pretty big. A big test for Emerich Gentry too, because he has had a lot of injury issues. The concussion thing is always a major concern, and his decision to redshirt made a lot of sense. But to be honest, whenever somebody has to take time away because of concussions, I become very worried about their future in football. So hopefully Emerich Gentry can not only play, but make it through the game, get that out of the way, and then come into the 2025 season as, the guy on defense. So it's, USC is going to be missing a lot of guys. It's rare that you get somebody back for the Bulls. So it's actually a pretty big deal, especially because we don't know if the other linebackers are even going to play. EMA and Cobb, both of them would be perfectly within their rights to sit out. I agree with Trojan Fight that he should be wearing a Guardian cap, and I don't know if Guardian caps are legal in college football, but they should be, and everybody should be wearing them. But that's just me.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't heard about it in college.
I
would imagine it's going to be one of the things that's changed in the offseason.
Well, they're wearing them. I know USC's linemen are wearing them at practice.
Yeah.
But I have never seen somebody wearing them during a game, not just on USC, but any other game. I don't think that they are currently allowed.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the transfer portal stuff. Where do we start? I think we start with Quentin Joyner.
Yeah, we start with Quentin Joyner.
Q Joe. The best USC running back since Dominic Davis, I think. Unquestionably, no doubt, for sure. I think surely no one's arguing that one, right? He is headed to the portal. This one is a big loss for SC because he was the one guy that you would have expected to 1,000% be upgraded in production next season, and promote to running back 1, undoubtedly. But alas, SC has to go back into the portal because the running back situation now sort of kind of dire, right?
Well, it depends on what your perspective is. So I spent some time today, and you actually haven't even gotten a chance to look at this because I don't think I've sent it to you yet, or maybe I did. Yeah, I did send it to you. So I've been keeping up a depth chart for USC, and I went through this morning, and updated it to include everybody who's going to be graduating, everybody who's already in the portal, added the freshmen, and then sort of like looked at some of the gaps that exist. And certainly, I don't like if Quentin Joyner is leaving, which, by the way, is just devastating because he's a really good runner. I suspect that, he still had work to do as a blocker, but that's a lot of running backs, and I don't think that's a reason to not do everything possible to keep him around.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? He could also be looking at much bigger NIL offers. It's really hard to say. He could also see that USC maybe doesn't run the ball as much as they should and is cutting bait. But the idea of going into the season with Brian Jackson as the presumptive starter is not ideal for me.
Yeah.
Amarian Peterson, I think, is a transfer, is somebody who would not surprise me if he ends up in the transfer portal.
Maybe not now.
But maybe Quentin Joyner leaving opens the door for him. But just the amount of playing time he didn't get this season relative to Brian Jackson, sometimes that just sort of is a sign, right? USC is bringing in two 3-star running backs.
4-star composite guys.
Or are they 4-star composite? I hate 24/7 has now done the thing where the stars that they give are
their own
instead of the composite. That's annoying.
Which makes logical
I get it,
sense.
but I wish you could toggle composite to see, So Riley Wormley and Harry Dalton.
Yeah.
So theoretically, those 4 scholarship running backs are sufficient. Theoretically. It's a very, very young room. I absolutely would be looking to bring in a veteran running back. I suspect that USC will be looking to bring in a veteran running back.
Mm-hmm.
But who am I to doubt USC's ability to land these guys at the park every time? But you almost get to a point where it's like when you've hit on 4 in a row, you're due for a miss. And
we saw that with the quarterback situation.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what makes me nervous about losing Quentin Joyner because, going into the season with Brian Jackson as your main guy, no offense to Brian Jackson because I think he's got a bright future and I actually really like him in, as a power back kind of concept, but I don't want him coming on. I don't want him getting, a ton of getting RB1 work, I guess is the gist of it. So
right.
You got to imagine USC's bringing somebody in at that position, but if they don't, you technically have enough bodies. You just don't feel really good about it.
I don't think you do have enough bodies. Jackson, Peterson, Wormley, Dalton. I think you ideally want 5 running backs, right? At least on your roster. It's a difficult spot because, like you said, there's no reason to doubt that SC can't find another transfer running back, another Woody Marks, another Marshawn Lloyd, another Austin Jones, another all those guys, right?
Travis Dye.
Yeah. I think that gives some hope that there could be a fix there, and we're going to talk about the guys in the portal that are not Trojans because there's one dude who I think absolutely should be the dude that they go out after super quickly here to sort of fit in that mold of those guys. So we'll get to that in a few minutes, but Quentin Joyner was someone who I thought really could be a really dynamic running back and end up maybe being better than Woody Marks was this year, or as good as any USC running back in recent history when he gets to the top of his game and reaches the potential that I think we saw that he could reach. But the other guys to mention in the portal, wide receiver Kyron Hudson. This is an interesting one. I would not have thought this. If you would have told me to bet on dudes to go into the portal, Kyron Hudson would not have been a dude I would have put in there.
See, apparently, and this is something I just completely missed, probably because I've been busy out of my brain with all of the other college football stuff that's been going on with my work and everything like that. Kyron Hudson walked at senior day, and I missed that, but that was, I suppose, the hint that we
Sure.
missed that he could end up in the portal. I'll call attention to the fact that Lake McCree also walked on senior day. So that's something to keep an eye on, even though it's a different situation, I think. But yeah.
Hudson is you look at him not being there, and you look at the wide receivers. You got Deuce Robinson, Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, Jay Fair, and then you add in the guys that they've signed recently, right? Corey Sims, Romeo Ison, Tanuk Hines, Xavier Jordan,
From last year, yeah.
yeah, and Johnson. James Johnson. He's an athlete, but I think we can sort of expect him to maybe be a wide receiver. So I think
I put him in the we'll double check that, but I put him in the corners. But yeah, either way he could be.
Either way he could be, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you look at it, you go, okay, the depth isn't as bad as the running back situation is. But Zachariah Branch underperformed this season, based on what we had the expectations to see from him.
Would not be a surprise at all for him to end up in the portal. Not a surprise at all.
He looks like someone who could benefit from new scenery.
Yeah.
It would hurt from the SC perspective, because especially a year ago, that's something you never would have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
But he struggled this season. I don't know. Is it the offense? Is it him? Does he just need a reset? I don't know. Was it just a bad year? He's going to step back next year and be the Zachariah Branch we all thought he could be? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Jacoby Lane is someone who has shown plenty of flashes to be a really good football player, but someone who is not on the football field a lot for whatever reason. So that's a thing. Deuce Robinson, again, flashes, not overly productive on a week-in, week-out basis. Mekhi Lemon is the only guy I think you can absolutely ink in as a for-sure starter. So I think there's a lot of talent in USC's receiving core, but we said that going into this season, and it was one of the weak points on the roster, unfortunately. So I think that could be a place where you look for another portal guy, maybe.
I think definitely you look for another portal guy. I think you look at the very least for portal guys in the mold of Kyle Ford and Charles Ross, or Jaden Richardson, like veteran guys at the very least. If Dennis Simmons looks at the current receiver group and says, Mekhi Lemon is a star, Deuce Robinson is a star, Xavier Jordan is a star. And even if, USC loses Branch and Lane, those are my stars. I don't want to bring in somebody who's not going to, let them see the field. Like, I think USC still needs one plus whoever else that they lose.
Mm-hmm.
So if Lane or Branch or both goes, you need to bring in one for Hudson, one for Lane, one for Branch, and one more, because you're losing at least one more, because you're losing the seniors Ford, Ross, and Richardson.
Yeah.
So your wide receiver depth still needs some padding depending on who else goes. But beyond the depth thing, I do feel quite confident in Mekhi Lemon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do think that Deuce Robinson could be a really, really great receiver, and I'm not ready to give up on him.
No.
The same with like Jacoby Lane. I just have a feeling that he won't be here next year. But
there is no reason to give up on any of the SC wide receivers, full stop. Because
the fact
we've seen glimpses of all of them. It's just about finding the consistency and the consistent productivity from all of them.
The fact is, though, is that we have not seen wide receiver number one level like performance often enough from any of those guys. Mm-hmm. If there is a wide receiver number one,
it's Lemon
in the portal. No, I mean Lemon.
Oh, in the portal. Yeah.
Ideally, what I want is Lemon to be wide receiver number two, not out of like he's a slot guy. Like I need that go-to outside receiver.
We've talked about this before, that like he fits the mold of a Steve Smith.
Yes, you need your Dwayne Jarrett.
A Robert Woods, an Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
And all those guys, Robert Woods was number one his first season, but second season, co-number one, third season, number 2. And that's great. When you have a Robert Woods as a number 2, you're in good hands.
You're in really good shape. So
Yeah.
I would be on the lookout for a wide receiver who is who has some star power.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other one that I think hurts a lot is defensive end Sam Green. This, for me, sort of came out of nowhere. I wouldn't have
I think
expected
this one truly came out of nowhere. Agree.
He really, I loved him from the moment we saw him in the spring game last season. He had a couple sacks in that game as a true freshman. Later on in the season, he started starting games, right? Like we saw him on the field a bunch. The defensive line was not very impactful as a whole, but of the guys on the defensive line, he was one of the names that you continually saw sort of in and around making plays as for what they were, right? And I think that there's a very good player in there that can, develop and end up being a solid rock star. But not at SC. He's going in the portal. I wonder if this is a Jakeem Stewart thing. I don't know.
It could be a lot of things. Jakeem Stewart is really interesting as like where does he actually fit in this defensive line? Because he projects as an interior defensive lineman, but he doesn't have that body yet. So
yeah,
I'm not sure where they're going to. I assume they will try to get him playing time this year as a freshman, but I'm not sure whose snaps he's going to be taking, I suppose.
No, that sounds like to me, by the way. Mind you, this is somebody you never had to question about their body size or anything. It's Leonard Williams, right?
Yeah,
because Leonard was a 5 technique end.
Yeah.
So someone who could play on the inside, but they could be an end in a 3-4 defense or something like that. And I think that given the flexibility of this defense up front, you could see him anywhere but nose tackle, really. Like, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. When USC has guys like Devin Tompkins, I guess Devin Tompkins didn't line up as a nose tackle specifically, but you know what I mean. He's young. It feels like playing time would be there because Jamil Muhammad is graduating. Solomon Tulipupu is graduating. Yes, you've got Cam Fountain, who was certainly preferred to the guys who arrived before him, like Braylon Shelby and Sam Green. But, Anthony Lucas, we don't know what's going on with him as far as, number one, A, what his injury is doing. Number two, B, will he leave, whether for the NFL or a transfer or something like that? Like, I don't know that that end position is so certain that I would be jumping in December. Like, I would totally understand leaving after spring if it became clear that I wasn't in the pecking order. It's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. On the offensive line, SC loses Amos Talalele and Gino Quinones. Big shout out to and Mason Murphy. Big shout out to Gino Quinones for making it this far. A dude who has been through a bunch of injuries, been around for seemingly ever. I think he was technically on that 1977 Bluebonnet Bowl team.
Remember when he was a recruit and he was like a defensive end?
He was, yeah.
And then
it's been forever.
Yes,
it's been forever. But you hope he can find a place where he can get on the field and be a productive lineman somewhere.
I have a question.
Go.
What is USC's plan at center? Because if Jonah Monheim is graduating and we expect Emmanuel Pregnon to depart for the NFL, my biggest question mark going into the season is what does USC do at center? Mm-hmm. And you have Killian O'Connor, who's a walk-on who has been the backup there, and they seem to trust him relatively enough. But don't you think Gino Quinones was going to be in line to compete for that starting job? As a center? Because I know he's trained as a center. So
I
Do we think he got processed, or do we think he?
I look at it this way, and I mean this no disrespect to Gino Quinones in the slightest, because he's been true Trojan that's been around forever and all that stuff, right? If he was going to start at USC, he would have done it already.
Mm.
There were plenty of opportunities. Plenty of players who got hurt or didn't perform up to snuff or any of those things in the last 36 years that Quinones was here. He could have gotten on the field if they deemed that he was worthy to do that.
Right. Well, Mason Murphy has been on the field. Was certainly not a great starter at right tackle for USC, but a starter nonetheless with starter experience. His decision to jump into the portal is very interesting. Those, Amos Talalele makes sense just because he didn't seem very high up on the pecking order. But these departures give me the feel of USC is going to bring in some guys, but then
portal guys,
but then my thought is like USC has already, I think, understood the trouble of bringing in portal offensive linemen. So letting Mason Murphy go, as flawed of a right tackle as he is, I'm very, very curious about what they have planned for this offensive line. Now, in a perfect world, you keep Elijah Page at left tackle. Alani Noah is one of the guards, or maybe even you slide him over the center. You get someone like Micah Benuelos or Hayden Schroeder, or one of the other offensive linemen that USC had brought in from last year's class, ready to come up and claim the other guard position. Justin Taunu takes over at right tackle, or like Alex Payne comes in right away and is ready to play, or Aaron Dunn comes in and is ready to play, and you roll with that offensive line. But now we're talking about an offensive line that includes
a bunch of new starters.
Literally, the oldest player on that line would be
Page and Noah.
Would be junior Alani Noah. So
they definitely need at least one guy from the portal to step in. Trojan Fight in the chat says Jason Sandamella. Yes, that would have been the dude. By the way, great Duke for me. James Madison Duke. James Sandamella. Yeah, I got him in the transfer portal from Florida. Rock star for that those great JMU teams that I put together. Trojan Fight says Killian O'Connor too. Yeah, Killian O'Connor's there. He could be someone who takes a step forward.
He's a junior. I believe had not been on a scholarship last year. If he comes back for a senior year, I would imagine they give him a scholarship, considering where he sits on the pecking. I don't know.
Sure.
We'll see with him.
Yeah. All right. Last guy to mention that's new into the portal is Kate Eldridge, which could be a problem. You talked about Lake McCree walking on senior day. Eldridge and McCree there. Carson Tabarachi is someone that you've sort of highlighted on our little internal depth chart as a transfer risk because he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time per se.
Yeah, he could be willing to. Again, like the way I look at it is anybody who's in their third year or longer with USC who hasn't gotten significant playing time yet, I'm gonna tag as a transfer risk because maybe they want to see it out and see what's gonna happen, but also you'd be well within your rights to go.
Walker Lyons seems like a stud in the making. That's great to have. Nella Tupou coming in as a signee who I watched an interview with him back when he was a Utah commit, and he was talking about wanting to go play both ways at Utah. I don't know if that's going to be something that happens at SC, but either way, I think you're going to sort of need him at tight end. Lincoln Riley talked about him as a tight end in the signing day press conference. So
If
Eldridge is someone that, you needed for depth, but at the same time, he wasn't as impactful as Lyons or McCree this season.
What I liked about Cade Eldridge is that he came in under relatively difficult circumstances and did quite well as a blocker relative to the rest of the tight ends. So like others, I'm not super worried about him leaving because USC has loaded up at tight end recently. Even if Lake McCree leaves, you still have 5 tight ends on the roster. And, as much as it would be fun to see USC, and USC has done some 2 tight end sets where it's, they have a tight end as like an H-back in the backfield. So they have been willing to do that. But you have to sort of imagine that Walker Lyons is number 1 if Lake McCree leaves. If Lake McCree stays, then you're really set with McCree and Lyons with Matthews and Joey Olsen and Tupou and maybe even Taparachi sort of supporting. But Walker Lyons is not as capable of a blocker as Cade Eldridge showed in his time, but certainly a more dynamic weapon. So I hope that they have perhaps another one of these young freshmen who can sort of take over for Eldridge in that sense of somebody they can bring in to block.
Yeah, %. Let's talk about guys already in the portal for a second here. Bear Alexander, Miller Moss, Jake Jensen, already in the portal. You already know about it. Miller Moss, I think he's taking visits at Mizzou and
Louisville? Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
There's a lot of smoke around Mizzou.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting spot for him. Not a terrible spot for him, but...
Yeah. MIZ, we'll see what happens with him. Before we get to, talking about the guys that SC could bring in the portal, some of these guys actually tied to SC. Some of them are just dudes that we scrolled through the 24/7 composite transfer portal and we're like, hey, that guy looks interesting. Before we get into that, I think we got to talk about how some of these dudes on this roster might be an underdog to get into a productive part of the rotation, which I think ultimately makes you wonder, does that make them pickable in an entry over on Underdog Fantasy? Alicia, I don't know. Maybe not. Underdog Fantasy, one of the places that I think that everyone should be able to go to. Download the app, Underdog Fantasy. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. More than 5 million Americans are doing it. Across 33 states, including California and Straits, presumably. I don't know, maybe the Barron Strait. Maybe you can play on the other side of the Barron Strait. I don't hold me to that. But either way, Underdog Fantasy has all the top leagues, all the top stars to choose from, including your favorite Trojans and Projans. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look at his stat projection. How many catches is he going to have in the next game for the Lions? You're probably going to want to take the higher. Higher and lower are your picks to put together entries. You can pick, mix and match from different sports. It's one of the things I like doing because sometimes I don't want to watch a million NFL games. But, my Jags, my red hot Jags. I'm like, yes, let me pick a Jag, but also it's Monday. That means that there's going to be an EPL game, Monday Night Football. You gotta pick some EPL players there. It's NBA season, it's NHL season. Which of the Kings is going to score a goal tonight? All those kind of things. You pick higher or lower on your stat predictions, put them all together, and you can win up to $1,000 in bonus cash if you use the code Rate of Troy. Download the app today and use the code Rate of Troy to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, every bucket. All of that from different sports, even including esports. Just select higher or lower on Underdog. So download the app today. Use the code Rate of Troy to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates, including California. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Alicia.
Yes.
Let's get into the people in the portal who you would hope would be favorites and not necessarily underdogs to come to the Trojans. But some of these might be because, again, some of these dudes are just people that were just picked off the 24/7 site that which is awesome, where they have all the transfer portal guys.
And I've been, while you've been talking, I've been going in and scrolling through Twitter and the like and seeing the guys that are being talked about as either A, having an offer, or B, being sort of connected to USC and adding them in here. So this list is only growing, especially because literally every hour the portal changes.
Yeah, and we hear more dudes. But before we get into all the defensive linemen that you've added there, I want to talk running back. We've talked before. SC has a knack for going and getting a transfer portal running back, Marshawn Lloyd, Austin Jones, all those dudes, Woody Marks, and being able to come in and be productive in a 1-year situation. For Austin Jones, it was a 2-year situation. But who's that dude this season? I think it's TJ Harden over at UCLA. Why not? The dude had a pretty productive season.
It looked pretty good.
For the Bruins, had a couple of big runs against SC. We know that UCLA is now a pipeline into SC. It always was because, there's like 3 facts in life. One of them is, unfortunately, you've got to pay taxes, right? The other one is the USB, when you plug it in, is always going to be upside down. You're going to have to flip it a couple times. And the third is every UCLA undergrad goes to USC for their master's. So I think it makes sense with TJ Harden here. He's the next in line to do that Neuheisel, Kamari Ramsey, Norton pipeline. The one that just goes directly underneath, Mid-City and West Adams and all those places.
Hey, I mean, sure.
Yeah, TJ Harden. The other guys,
I liked the way that he runs the ball. I think he would be a fine addition if he's willing to trade in the baby blue for Cardinal and gold.
I think it would be a fit. The other running backs to be interested in here, Jalen Glover out of Utah, potentially linked to SC, could be visiting. Didn't have the most productive season, sort of more productive last year, but he's a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's the veteran that comes in and isn't a clear number one, but could be interesting. There's been murmurings that he's going to be visiting at the very least. So
yeah. Then there's a bunch of young dudes with a ton of availability that are highly ranked in the 24/7 Sports Composite transfer portal rankings, which of course values things like eligibility. If you are a freshman and you've been productive as a freshman, you're going to be a highly rated transfer because you have a lot of potential impact, right? So Kyron Hudson is only a 3-star transfer because, yeah, he might be better than a lot of the dudes in the transfer portal, but you're only going to get 1 year out of him, right? So understand that that's how some of the rankings work. But Wayshawn Parker from Wazoo, big season as a true freshman over in Pullman, 735 yards. Ahmad Hardy from ULM over in Monroe, Louisiana, 1,351 yards as a freshman, 13 touchdowns. Hello. And the other running back, someone who I think you instantly offer just because of his name, Fluff Bothwell.
Dude, USC has had great luck with guys with really good names.
Woody Marks,
Marshawn Lloyd,
Buck Allen,
Fluff Bothwell.
Yeah.
Sign him up.
Yes. Yeah. And a name like Fluff has to be someone who's in LA for sure. 832 yards and 13 touchdowns as a true freshman. Actually, he might have been a redshirt freshman. Either way, as a freshman, for UCA, the Jags, over in South Alabama. Let's talk about those linemen that you've added in, as we've been on this call, on this pod. You want to take it away?
Yeah. Okay. So it seems to me that the most action that is publicly available for USC in the transfer portal thus far has to do with defensive linemen, which is should not be a surprise necessarily.
Yeah.
I did think it's interesting because USC has a lot of young sort of recruits that they've brought in at that position, but I'm not sure that, like, if I were USC, as much as I, want to see what guys like G.D. Avasiri and Carlin Jones and all those guys have, I would rather bring in bigger bodies who are like fully formed to buy them more time. So this should not be a surprise that USC is looking particularly like for a nose tackle. So the biggest one is Keyshawn Silver from Kentucky. He 6'4", 335, is just a space eater inside. He has already narrowed it down, according to On3, to Florida, Miami, Michigan, and USC. That's tough competition, whether from an NIL standpoint or a, development, contention, all that kind of stuff. But this is, if USC lands Keyshawn Silver, I will be a very, very, very happy person.
He makes me drool.
I just saw 335 and I was like, yep, give him the bag. Let's go.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more interesting, paired with another apparent interest that USC might have from defensive line perspective. Kazim Moore.
Great name.
Good name. He's from FCS Elon Phoenix, which I have never heard of. But
Elon. It's just
FCS.
Elon. You don't have to add the Phoenix in there.
Well, they said Elon Phoenix. I don't know.
Well, that's their nickname. It's like saying it's very Britishism. It's a Britishism.
Oh, okay.
He's from Michigan Wolverines.
See, I wasn't sure.
Wasn't a good accent.
Okay. I got you. I wasn't sure if like there were multiple Elons and that this was the campus in Phoenix.
There are unfortunately multiple Elons, but this is not
colleges
the
that are Elon.
It's not the annoying Elon. Yeah.
He posted that he received an offer from USC on Twitter. 6'5", 255. He's more of an end. 51 tackles, 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles in the FCS level last year. So that's an interesting look, especially when Chris Trevino hinted that USC would have interest in another FCS guy from a more established program, Melkart Abu Jaude.
Great name.
From Delaware.
Go Blue Hens.
25 tackles, 6.5 sacks this past season. Delaware is a good FCS program, so I don't hate looking at FCS guys at USC, but I
think it's going to be interesting with the roster expanding. I think they're
just start loading them up.
I don't know that you want to load it up because you don't want to expand too much because, like you were talking about earlier, anyone who doesn't play, doesn't get on the field is a transfer risk in the year of our Lord 2024, right? Like that's how it is. But I think with the expanded roster, I think you can take more flyers on FCS guys that are like really good, and maybe they're a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, give them a chance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of FCS. There's a long history of FCS guys. Who just needed a chance.
Where's the loaf of the tupu?
Yeah. Okay, and then the last defensive lineman, Mason Rieger from Louisville. I don't know if there's any like fire behind the smoke, but Greedy Vance tagged Eric Henderson on Twitter when he put in his transfer announcement. 22 tackles, 5 sacks this year. Seems to be highly regarded out of Louisville. Should have a lot of attention coming out. So he's another guy that USC could look at. And then the last one I saw, Shotgun Spratling, noted that Andrew Gentry from Michigan, the offensive lineman, 6'7", 327, had a couple starts this year for Michigan. He is in the portal, and he had an offer from USC coming out of high school. So I don't know if there's contact there now, but there was interest before. So USC is clearly digging around in the trenches. They were doing that last year too, and they got some guys and missed some big guys. So it, success next year does slightly hinge on how big USC swings and how successful they are at doing it.
Yeah, when we're playing our College Football 25 Dynasty online with our friends, and you don't have enough hours to recruit a guy, but you see that there's an offer from someone in the league that you respect, probably scouted him.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm not even going to scout this dude.
I'm just going to.
They did. I'm offering and going all in and setting the house. That's the Andrew Gentry thing. Michigan gave this dude an offer. We're in. We're in. That's where you need any like line stuff. Michigan's line has been so good on the offensive and defensive side, especially the defensive side this past season, right? Like automatically, there's even a hint of an offer. You're in. Just take it. You're in there and see what you can do. Other guy on the offensive line that I put in here at the time of putting together this rundown this morning, Hunter Zambrano, probably like the lost love child of Carlos, I would assume, over at Illinois State. The number 2 portal guy in 24/7 Sport Composite, which is interesting. FCS, moving on up, didn't play much this season because of injury. Believe it, he has 1 year of eligibility. A lot of draft buzz, high PFF grades. Take PFF grades for what they're worth in like FCS. Sure. But I think that would be interesting. I think he's someone that, I was reading on some Ohio State stuff, people were wanting him to go to Columbus. But yeah, he's someone maybe it would be interesting. The number 1 portal guy, when I did this in the morning, I only put that qualifier because names are being added left and right. It could change, right? Was Prince Will Human Malin. Mielin.
Uman Mielin.
Prince Will U. That's what we're going with.
Prince Will U.
From Nebraska, the number 1 portal guy is defensive end. So he could take another pass rusher. Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about the receivers. Dane Key from Kentucky, the top receiver for the Cats out of BBN. The 715 yards for him, 2 touchdowns in 2024. Doesn't sound like a lot, but he was far and away Kentucky's most productive wide receiver in an offense that wasn't super pass happy. So I think that would be interesting. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, 798 yards as a freshman in 2023. He was expected to be a star for the Sooners this season, but ended up getting sort of like a medical redshirt. He missed most of the season. I think he played 1 game and was targeted once in the Tennessee game, but did not record a catch. Highly rated, lots of eligibility. Nick Anderson, I think that would be an interesting little, run at if you want to look that way. Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, their top receiver, 754 yards, 3 touchdowns. Casey Concepcion from NC State, 460 yards, 6 touchdowns for the Pack this past season. Those are just dudes that are in the portal. Maybe they never even bat their eye and look towards SC, but there's dudes in the portal is what we're saying. Yes,
Singleton and Concepcion are big names in the portal at wide receiver. I think I just saw a little while ago that Singleton is expected to take visits to Ole Miss and Georgia, basically the SEC teams. So I'm not sure how much USC has a foothold there, but they should definitely be trying to look at any of these big name wide receivers. I mean, you just look at Oregon and the big name receivers that they've managed to pull, and what a difference it makes for them with all of their transfer portal success and where they are now. USC needs to start acting like a big boy in the transfer game, and that means coming in with big NIL offers and just beating teams out for the players that are going to make you better. And there are a lot of players in the portal who can make you better, but you have to give them a better offer. Yeah,
100%. So we'll see where that all goes with transfer portal stuff. Keep an eye out. We'll be back with our next episode. Are we going to do Wednesday or we're just going to do next Monday? I think we do next Monday, right? If there's enough stuff to talk about, maybe we'll be back Wednesday. We should have talked about this before we were on the pod.
Yeah.
Either way. Maybe Wednesday.
Maybe.
Definitely next Monday for sure.
We'll do Wednesday if more big transfer news happens.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, let's start with a review we got on Apple Podcasts. 5-star review from JB Class 8082. Thank you. Big cheers for we love our Apple Podcast reviews. They help out the show tremendously. This was titled Stewart. Great job. Jakeem Stewart's old high school wouldn't allow him to graduate early, so he changed schools, and the Louisiana board ruled him ineligible. So Jakeem worked with the trainer his whole senior year. He also worked out in person for Eric Henderson. Yeah, when we talked last week, I think that there was way more context that needed to be in there. Absolutely. And what we were saying about Jakeem Stewart, it's not like he purposely sought out to completely not play and all that kind of stuff. It was, still his decision to reclassify, certainly. So,
yeah. Yeah, definitely more context there that I think I didn't do a good job of navigating.
Yeah.
The ineligibility and the high school school boards that decide who is ineligible for one reason or another, all of that kind of stuff is very complicated and sometimes inexplicable, and you never know which side is in the right or in the wrong or anything like that. So I get it that there's a world where he really wanted to play and just circumstances forced him to not be able to. But either way, as I said, I think Jakeem Stewart plus Eric Henderson is going to be a good mix. And the question, I guess, for me is how long does USC give him, and does he give USC until playing time? Because reclassifying into an earlier year, it means he's a year younger than he would be. Is he ready to play at the college level now? I don't know. I don't get to make that evaluation. I would love it if he is. But is this like a redshirt situation or not?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be something to sort of keep an eye on that way. Let's get into some emails here. We got an email on the transfer portal from Tony, the NORPA. We got a couple of emails from him on the portal, on the transfer portal. Most of the stuff we've already talked about. So we'll take the most recent email here from Tony into NORPA that says, Alicia, Michael, this is Tony from the NORPA. What's going on? Now Quentin Joyner in the portal? Am I missing something here? He will be the number one running back going in the next season. Lincoln will have to hit on another running back in the portal. He has done it before. Fight on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to hope that they can strike gold again. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to happen to bring this roster together.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that USC can't emerge from the portal as big winners. It's just that they need to show the want to from a financial perspective to go out and make those moves to replace these guys. Because, at this point, not to slight anybody who's in the portal, but at this point, everyone who is left is replaceable, is upgradable to this point. So
I think with the exception of Quentin Joyner.
Well, no, because if you get somebody, if you strike gold with another Marshawn Lloyd or Travis Dye or William Marks,
well, in that case, I think that
then I think you're like,
sure.
If you do that again, then you have upgraded
for sure
your options. That's just what I mean.
And running back, I think this is no remote shot at Quentin Joyner at all or slight anywhere, but running back is the most replaceable position in sports, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chat in chat right now about, NIL stuff when it comes to Quentin Joyner and whether or not he's valued enough. And
hey, if the supposed offer that Quentin Joyner got was $35,000, which is very low. But if USC's plan is to go out and find the biggest, baddest running back on the market and pay that guy $1 million, then
right. But would you bet on that?
Then by all means, go right ahead.
Would you bet on it?
I wouldn't, because I don't trust USC
Right.
to do what needs to be done on this front.
Yeah. But yeah, running backs unfortunately are the most replaceable position. That's the part that sucks about this, because like I think running backs are can be the face of an offense. They can be a face of a team. They can be your favorite player. All those things. And we see this in the NFL. There's like they don't get that second contract most often. And it's a bummer how sports is like that. Let's go to some chat comments we got. SJ says, do you think it's about time to eliminate the redshirt rule period and allow 5 years of eligibility?
Yes.
I agree.
I think everything in this sport needs to be simplified. Go to 5 years of eligibility. Do an early signing period.
Mm-hmm.
Don't open the portal until after the bowl games. All of these things. I know that's not possible because of enrollment stuff, but you know.
No, I 1,000% agree that's what it should be. I think there should be a lot of reform with that. I am also, this is something we'll talk about in the off season, because I have so many thoughts. I think I've mentioned this before. Like, sometimes I fantasize about like overage players.
Yes, the like what they do with the international soccer, where you have like an under 21s team, but you get three.
Yeah, you get like three
senior
overage players.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I think the NFL would be fine with too, because like if you get a dude that's like, you know, not making rosters in the NFL or whatever, but like wants to go back and play top end college football, like I don't know. Like, for instance, like what if you couldn't find a quarterback and then Cody Kessler was your quarterback next season, and that was his chance to maybe go back into the NFL, was like improve, like show that he has a bunch of good film or whatever. Like, it would be interesting.
That every school in the country would have a 28-year-old quarterback. Like, you would not have young guys playing anymore.
But you do it to where they can only have one season or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. These are pipe dreams that don't mean anything. Trojan Fight says, are we going after a starting quarterback? Have you seen enough out of Mayava to have him starter in 2025? Talked about this a lot last week. Your thoughts?
I don't think USC will go out there and be in the market for the biggest names on the out there for quarterback. I think USC is going to try to sort of have their cake and eat it too by getting a veteran quarterback who can come in and provide some sort of competition for Jade Mayava, but isn't a step on campus and your number one kind of guy, and sort of see what happens from there.
Yeah, I think it'll be something to keep an eye on. I think both of us are in the camp of like, we're not 100% locked into anything. If we were the Lincoln Riley making the decision here, I think that I at minimum want to see some sort of competition in the spring. Let's go to a call we got from Darren. That's what happens when you don't update the soundboard.
Steve Miller.
Yeah. All right. Just one slight second here. Pretend to be Darren for a second.
Okay, I'm just gonna vamp though, because Kenny asked in the chat, who are you rooting for in the playoff? This is a good question. Basically, at this point, I'm rooting for anybody that isn't Notre Dame or Oregon. Because
why wouldn't you root for your alma mater?
Because I don't want to see USC's rivals be happy. I think ASU would be really fun if they pulled something off here, but I don't think they're gonna be able to make it all the way through. But that could certainly be fun. As I guess I'm at the point where I think I'm rooting for Boise. I'm rooting for chaos. I'm rooting for Boise State or SMU, Indiana or Arizona State to go out there and make some way. Like anyone who isn't a blue blood, who isn't a like any team that you would be surprised that they won the championship. I am rooting for.
No, I'm with you. Yes, 100%. At the same point, I have a Oregon take that is not going to be popular with people. I might get disowned.
You are about to get disowned.
I might. I think it's weird, personally, how SC fans have this dual look at Oregon. On one hand, it's Oregon is absolute crap. They've never won anything. 0 million uniforms, but no titles. They suck. Blah, blah, blah. And the other hand is like, why can't we be like them and put in money and all this stuff? And it's like, in my mind, and again, I understand that this is unpopular. First of all, I don't think SC fans should be consumed with Oregon. I think it's like Dodger fans and being obsessed with the Padres. Like, if they are truly beneath you because they haven't won anything, don't focus on them then. The flip side of it is, though, isn't there a part of you that just wants Oregon to just murder everybody? And then if you're Lincoln Riley, you can just be like,
no.
Look, right there.
No.
Look, can't we do that? Like, that. See what happens when you invest? See what happens when you do all this stuff?
No, because you could point at Ohio State and say that.
For sure.
You could point at Georgia and say that.
For sure, but like,
you don't need to point at Oregon and say, like, yeah, because they won it, now we're going to go out and spend. You should already be spending. You should already be outspending Oregon.
I agree.
That shouldn't be. As for the Oregonness of it all, like, you know how Dodgers fans hate Padres fans, even though the Padres are...
There's no reason to.
It's because they're loud, because they're new money loud, like talking like they've done some shit that they've never done. That's why USC fans don't like Oregon fans.
But like... Because
USC fans will have, lively debates with like Notre Dame fans, but Notre Dame is one shit. And USC will still poke at like the stuff that it's been decades since they've won anything. But at least Notre Dame like is in USC's tier of blue blood, and USC fans don't like that Oregon, which is very clearly not in the tier of blue blood, gets pissy because people don't consider them a blue blood because they aren't a blue blood.
Okay, people knock on Notre Dame because they haven't won a title since 1988.
Yeah, including USC fans.
Yes. So I just think it's a little weird to turn around and sort of do the same thing with Oregon in the sense of
It's not like USC fans want Notre Dame to win either.
No, I know, but like in the last 15 years, Oregon is exponentially a better program.
Which is why USC fans hate them. Like, USC fans hated Stanford the way that they hate Oregon now, when Stanford was good.
Way more respect with
people hated Stanford. And
not in the same way as the Oregon stuff.
USC fans always hate the team that is doing better than them. That is just the case.
For sure.
And it has been Oregon for a decade. And that is completely fine. As a sports fan, you should dislike the teams that you are jealous of. That's how it works. Why did people hate the Patriots? Because they freaking won everything, and everybody else didn't get to win everything, and it's annoying. Why do people hate the Chiefs? Why do you hate the Chiefs? Because they win everything, and it's annoying.
That's the irony.
What?
It's like people are mad at people are jealous about Oregon's ability to throw money around. But then also, like, discredit Oregon for never winning. It's like, it can't be both of those things.
They don't discredit Oregon for never winning.
Are you kidding me?
No, they discredit Oregon for never winning a championship. But USC at this point is not even in the, grading yourself against championship teams at this point. USC is not winning the Pac-12 titles that Oregon is winning. USC is not winning the Big Ten titles that Oregon is winning. That's all that Oregon needs to do to piss off USC fans. But the one thing that USC has over Oregon or Notre Dame is the thing that USC fans harp on. USC loses to Notre Dame this year. It sucks from a USC perspective, but no matter what, unless they do it this year, no matter what, USC fans get to look at it and say, you beat us this year, but when was the last time you won a national title? We have had that joy more recently than you have. And it's the same thing with Oregon. Oregon is objectively a better football program than USC right now, and it's not even close. They have a better roster. They have a better coach. They have a better sugar daddy. They have better facilities. They have everything better than USC. They have won conference titles, but USC cannot talk to Oregon fans except for one thing. except for two things. One, they have never won a national title, and two, because they have never had a national title, all they have is their uniforms. And that is a perfectly reasonable thing for a USC fan in the position, in the underneath position that USC is currently in, to feel that way. It is perfectly reasonable for fans to feel that way, because you have to find something to dig at the other team when they have so much more that they can dig at you over.
No, I get that. And this is not an abnormal thing, because like I said, the Dodger fans railing on Padres fans, everybody railing on Arsenal fans and Arteta for not winning anything when it's like clearly they're in a better situation even though they haven't won anything.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm just saying that, like,
railing on Manchester United fans because Liverpool has won more Champions Leagues.
But there's irony
Manchester
here,
City
right?
because
There's
Liverpool have won more Champions Leagues. You have to find you find the area where you can give it, and you stick with that, because what else are you going to say? Right. Yeah, you're better than us. But
I'm just saying the arguments are flawed, right? They're all flawed arguments in some sense.
Every sports related argument is flawed and bluster.
Right.
Like, it's but why care? Like, no, sports is irrational. Let it be irrational.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's valid. Let's go to Darren.
Hey guys, this is Darren from Reno. Just wanted to know if you could touch on something. If not, it's all good. But it's being reported that the actual reason Quentin Joyner is leaving USC comes down to money. Reportedly, he was only getting paid around $35,000. He was being accused of not going to class as a reason to not pay him more. And it's pretty obvious, if these things are true, USC has a Dave Emerich problem. This guy does not know what he's doing. Lincoln Riley, unfortunately, has tied himself to this guy. He has no idea how to manage a budget. Apparently now he's accusing players of not going to class and other things, reportedly. If you guys are able to touch on this, or you have any other information about Dave Emerich and potentially him being the root cause of a lot of these things, I'd like to know your guys' opinion and kind of any more information you have, because this is unacceptable. This is USC football. This isn't Duke football. This isn't, Louisiana Tech football. The big dogs are paying the money. They're negotiating well, and they're winning games and going to the playoff. And USC just seems to be so far behind the eight ball. And as fans, these things need to be exposed. And this stuff is unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. So I'd like to get your guys' thoughts and opinions, if you can, on this topic. And as always, fight on.
Thanks for the call, as always, Darren. Yeah, I think we're with you, right? Like
Well, I mean, here's what I'll say. I don't know Dave Emerich. I don't know very much about him. I don't know whether or not he's good at his job. But what we do know is that at the moment, we have been told that USC has the funds to compete in terms of NIL. If that's the case, and those funds are there, then USC has not done a great job of managing their roster. How much of that is Dave Emerich? How much of that is Lincoln Riley? How much of that is anybody else involved in the program? I don't know. I think Emerich is my guess is that Emerich is not doing an exceptional job, because if he was, USC would have a stronger roster. But I also would suspect that anything that Dave Emerich does is there's a certain amount of control that Lincoln Riley holds over it. And I wouldn't let Lincoln Riley off the hook on that front. I do think that based on where USC is after 3 years of Lincoln Riley, they should be looking to aggressively hire somebody who can manage the roster the way that a professional team manages the roster from a financial perspective. Because that is what is going to be necessary. I listened to a great episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out where this guy who was like in a front office in the NFL, and now he's transitioned to college football to set up like a consulting firm or whatever for all of this stuff. And he did a really good job of laying out how the teams that go all in on professionalizing their roster in terms of hiring a front office staff that is specifically focused on front office matters, those are the teams that are going to be ahead. And anybody who falls behind on that is going to fall behind. My issue is that USC, all of these people that USC has on the roster from the back, from like the Dave Emerich and Clark Stroud and all of these guys, they all came in 2020, 2021. They all came in the initial wave. This was pre-NIL. This was the massive explosion of transfer portal that's followed NIL. And I think that the things that you would have hired those guys for, they're now being asked or expected to do things beyond that. So I would guess that Dave Emerich is not qualified to be a GM like he is listed. He was hired as a senior associate athletic director for football.
Yeah.
He was not hired as a general manager, but that he has that title now. They should find somebody who is a general manager and bring them in to deal with all of this stuff. I don't know if you have something to say on that.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One, yes, he like you said, he's not necessarily qualified, but this is a new position in the game, which makes it very difficult from multiple standpoints. One, hiring anybody that no one's going to be literally qualified because no one's ever done the job before because it's new.
Yeah.
So yes, I think the guys that you're going after to hire that position, Emerich sort of fit the bill of what you would have expected a lot of those positions to be, which are recruiting guys, player personnel guys, etc.
Yeah.
And one dude who I think would have been perfect for this role is Brandon Sosna, because Brandon Sosna, we know that he's a front office guy in sports, and college football finally has a role that matches that. The AD and a GM are not the same thing.
No.
But this role finally mimics that. I think would be interesting. And losing Sosna hurts there. But my biggest takeaway from this is me telling you that I don't know anything. Because one of my frustrations with college football, and I understand why it's like this, in part because college football is just so big. There's too many teams. There's too many players. There's too many schools. There's too many everything that you can't cover everything, and you can't have the transparency that professional sports have. And then you add on all the murky rules, gray areas of NIL and the NCAA and all of that stuff, and you end up with the scenario where someone like Dave Emerich, I think, from where we stand right here, you and I, is impossible to say anything about. Because the only things that you're ever going to see are things that are behind paywalls on premium recruiting sites and a lot of stuff that we can't talk about because of that. Or it's stuff that only can be reported on that because that's where grassroots journalism in college football is. And then that's where sort of the only interest are the recruiting beatniks and stuff like that are fully into that stuff. You couldn't put this news on the front of ESPN LA or whatever, right? Because there's not enough of fervor for it. This is a niche news situation. But if there was the transparency and I hope we get there in the sense of just being able to judge people correctly. I hope we get there. If there was that transparency to know that, like, this is Dave Emerich's decision. This one is not Dave Emerich's decision. This one is. And then you can sit there and properly point to, well, that's his fault and that's not his fault.
Well,
but this one is his fault. Because in professional sports, we get that.
Right. But
we get that. Like, we get to know that it was Theo Epstein who went out and got David Ortiz from the Twins.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, which is why the model is heading for GMs and head coaches like Pete Carroll, who was essentially a GM, or Nick Saban, who was essentially a GM without the like money situation. Those are not going to be the case anymore. We're going to see head coaches at the college level that are more akin to head coaches at the NFL level, which will be great, because doesn't everybody say that all the college coaches are leaving because they're tired of having to do all of the work, and going to the NFL focuses their job to just the coaching? Well, great. That's what the model that we're going towards.
Yeah.
But that means you can't be leaning on your chief of staff recruiting guy to be your financial director, to be your contracts guy.
Right.
That you just can't be doing that. And that's what USC is currently doing. So again, I don't know if Dave Emerich is doing a good job or a bad job. I don't have any of that information. What I do know is from the profile of people that USC has having their hand in these things, that is not the profile of person that I would hire for that job.
Yeah.
That's the way I approach it. As for Quentin Joyner and not going to class or having any of these other things, I think that it would do well to remember that these are kids who often lack the maturity to follow through on everything that they need to follow through. I don't know if Quentin Joyner was not going to class. He would not be the first one who was skipping class if that were the case. No. If you told me anyone on the roster was skipping classes, I would say that is not surprising to me, because this has been a point of contention for college players.
You and I had classes with players
going back to forever.
To
yes. So like I don't. My thinking here is that if he wasn't going to class, like, or if he was going to class and somebody is slandering him, like I don't know that would be necessary.
This is why, though, I wish that there was transparency on things like this.
Yeah,
like,
but they're not going to out the player.
They're not going to out the player. But
so all
I
of
think
that's coming from behind the scenes. And
yes,
like,
right.
Again, like I won't name names, but like, you know, we've heard going back years, 10 years of doing this podcast. Every single year we hear, yeah, so-and-so's not going to class. That's why they're not playing. Like, we hear that every year. So, again, I don't know about Quentin Joyner, but this is just this is a regular thing. What I want to point out is Lincoln Riley was on Trojans Live today. This quote just came out. Connor Morissette has the quote. The reality is there are just some guys that you either can't or you're not going to pay what they want. If your value doesn't match the money, it's not going to go well much longer. It's not going to go any further. That would seem to answer the question of what happened with Quentin Joyner, or any of these guys who come in and probably hear from, outside sources that are, not tampering, but probably hear, hey, you could get X amount of dollars from here. And then they get pie in the sky with the money that they're promised, and they go back to the school and they say, hey, I heard I can get X amount of money from over there. Yeah. Well, over there might be way more desperate for a running back than, or for a player at any position than the program here.
It might be a desperate school like an ASU that, like, super desperate for somebody.
Hey, and they need to replace Cam Scadaboo. So
yeah, and super desperate, and then all of a sudden they end up in the playoff before SC does.
What I want to impress upon people is that, like, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. It's never as black and white as just USC offered somebody pennies and they took their ball and went home, or player comes to USC and says, I want millions of dollars, and USC goes like, yeah, no, we're not paying you millions of dollars. Like, it's probably somewhere in the middle, but that's the spectrum upon which we're sort of operating here in the current age of college football. And this isn't specifically a USC thing, because losing players because you're not willing to pay them more is not a USC thing. Just look at the transfer portal. They're leaving everywhere. They're leaving Michigan and Alabama and Georgia and Florida and ASU and Washington and Oregon and everywhere. Everybody is hemorrhaging players. And a majority of those players, I would guess, are some of them are being processed, and some of them are being told that they can make X amount of dollars somewhere else. And they jump in the portal, and some of those guys will get that money from somewhere, and some of those guys won't. And it'll be ultimately a weird kind of trade thing where USC wasn't willing to pay this guy, and he ends up going somewhere that USC pulls a different player from because that somewhere wasn't willing to pay that guy, and he ends up at USC. Like, it all ends up in that kind of.
Well, it's like, Chelsea doesn't have the playing time for a center mid like Conor Gallagher, and then sells him to Atletico Madrid, and then turns around a week later and signs Kieran Drewsbury Hall. Yeah, who doesn't play.
Yeah. It's all silly
and money
where again, I think that if you think that USC is not doing a good enough job in their front office, I think there is ample evidence of that being the case, because USC isn't doing a good job on a lot of levels.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up with an email. Voicemail we got from Eric.
Hey, Michael. Hi, Alicia. This is Eric from Salina, Texas. This one goes out to Alicia. I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning the Christmas carols that you like to listen to, the playlist on Spotify, Carols from Clare College. I am a lover of choral music, and I don't know why I've never been familiar with this, but this is a Christmas gift. Thank you so much for mentioning it. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all you guys do. Merry Christmas. Fight on.
Merry Christmas, Derek. Look at you.
That's
at least
awesome.
You're just giving out gifts early.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad that you liked it, Eric. I'm glad that at least we've spread that cheer to at least one person. It's been in my family literally my whole life. I have no idea where my dad growing up had when I was a kid, he got like a 500 disc CD player, and there was like a 20. You could set it in blocks, and there was like a block of it that was just all the Christmas albums that he had, and we just listened to all of that during Christmas, and that was just one of the ones that was in the Christmas block. So it holds immense sentimental value to me, but it's also just beautiful music. So I'm glad that I got to share that.
All right, we're gonna play a game really quick. He said he's from Salina, Texas, right? I looked it up.
Salina. He said Salina.
Salina,
I noted it because it was one of those ones where I was like, I wonder how that's spelled, because that sounds exactly like one of those.
Celina.
Celin. Yeah.
Okay. Can you guess the mascot for Salina High School? Can you do it?
Salina. Cougars.
You're close. You're actually very close.
Bobcats?
It's Bobcats.
That was going to be my guess, but I wanted to go with the alliteration, because high school mascots love being alliteration. But yeah, when I think of Texas mascots, I just think of like
Panthers,
Pumas, Panthers, Cougars. Yeah. Bobcats.
Mules. Muleshoe mules.
Muleshoe mules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there. I just want to say I'm disappointed that the chat no longer gives me states to throw out cities for. As a geography lover, it makes me sad. It pains me inside.
Hey, we can play a new game where if you write in or call in, let us know what city you're in.
I think it's better if it's in the YouTube chat, though, because
in the YouTube chat.
Like, trust me, I am not scouting all these things, but it would just be better if someone just dropped in a state in the chat, and then I could, for sure not have had the time to search it up. So
yeah.
Anyways, next time.
Yeah.
Wednesday if there's a lot of news. Monday if not. So we'll be back next time. Thanks as always. Email address ranttroyfanside.com. Phone number 818-643-7227. And we'll be back next time. West Texas Mike says Louisiana. Here's one. Ruston, Louisiana.
Ruston, Louisiana.
Yeah. It's where Louisiana Tech is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I stayed a night there one night. For real. So, all right. We'll see you next time. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.